All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Patty Duarte, Community Health Coordinator at Dignity Health St. Mary Medical Center. Our presenter for today is Julissa Hebard. Julissa is with NAMI Long Beach. She is the Director of Outreach. Thank you so much, Julissa, for being with us here today. And I'll go ahead and let you share the screen with us.
Hi there, Patty. Thank you so much. All right, let me get over here. We got that? That's good. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Julissa Hebard, and I'm with NAMI Long Beach. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about NAMI and post-pandemic, what is the new normal? So first, what is NAMI? NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots organization started by the friends and family members of those that have serious mental illnesses. We are a national organization, so there is our NAMI national organization that handles our national business. We have 800 affiliates across the country. We also have state affiliates such as NAMI California that does a lot of our advocacy work and work in policy and legislation. And then we have our local affiliates. So I'm with the Long Beach area affiliate. There are 13 affiliate chapters across Los Angeles County. There is NAMI Orange County, NAMI San Diego. So basically anywhere that you go in the country, you can get access to NAMI classes, support groups, and programs. Our mission is mental health recovery and resiliency. We are dedicated to improving the lives of individuals affected by mental illness and their families by providing mental health education, support, and advocacy. Here in the Long Beach area, and even though it is Long Beach, we do serve the surrounding areas. So Los Angeles is definitely a commuter city, and no matter where you live or work, you are welcome to attend our classes or support groups. We are currently doing a lot of our support groups on Zoom right now, and that has been a blessing to be able to invite people from other areas. Our mission is education, support, advocacy, and awareness. So we educate people who have mental illness. We educate their families, their caregivers, and the community at large in order to improve resources, services, and the knowledge by reducing misinformation. We have several signature classes as well as courses and capsule classes based on topics. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. We also offer support. So we support people with mental illness and their families by helping you to find coping mechanisms for your daily struggles, including support groups, classes, workshops, and special events. Additionally, we work to provide awareness. We promote conversations in our community to remove stigmas that are often associated with mental illness. We work with community-based organizations, with health groups, with businesses, with law enforcement, schools, youth groups to provide awareness and really try to end stigma surrounding mental health issues. And then finally, advocacy. We work on national and state policy and legislation to improve the laws regarding mental illness, mental health, insurance parity, things like that. We are constantly working to make sure that our legislators and our government agencies keep up with what is needed for our community. So with all of these programming, all of this work, how much does it cost? It actually costs nothing to the community. We are very blessed here in California to have Prop 63, the Mental Health Services Act, as well as we are funded by grants and donations generously supported here in the community to provide these at no cost. So none of our programs have a cost to anyone who would like to join. And when we talk about our programming, we have support groups. So we have our family support group that meets on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month. And that is a meeting for anyone that is connected to someone that has a mental health condition. So it could be parents that are joining, it could be siblings, it could be a partner, a loved one, a friend, really anyone who's connected to that person that has a mental health condition. And this is somewhere to go and share what you're struggling with, get resources, get support. We also have our connection meeting, which is for those that live with a mental health diagnosis or a mental health challenge. And that is a closed group only for those that have that live with mental health challenges to discuss how their recovery is going, talk about coping skills, share communication skills and strategies towards making sure that you're stable and that you have crisis plans in place. These are huge topics at our support groups for peers. We also have a faith-based support group, which is a group that is for those family members or peers that want to talk about their journey with mental health and spirituality. So it is a non-denominational group open to anyone that wants to talk about mental health and spirituality. And then we do also offer our educational classes. We have our family-to-family class and our peer-to-peer class that offer, those are 8-week classes. They do take registration to join. And those are very, very informative and robust courses that discuss brain chemistry, different medications, different diagnoses, coping skills, communication skills, and really just give you a very good foundation for understanding where mental illness comes from. Additionally, we work with grants and grant providers here in the area, and we are now on year 2 of our Dignity Health grant, providing mental health first aid and QPR question, persuade, refer suicide prevention courses here in the Long Beach area. So if anyone is interested in holding any classes or would like training for suicide prevention, please feel free to reach out either to us at NAMI Long Beach or to Patty at St. Mary's to schedule a class. So as we get into what is the new normal post-pandemic, today we're going to talk about how life could get better or worse after COVID-19, older adults and the effects of COVID-19. We'll discuss how different people might react to the opening up and getting back out there. We will talk about ways to ease anxiety about getting back to normal. There are a few things to watch out for, especially when we talk about our older population. And then I really want to talk a little bit about resiliency. So we'll do that at the end. So how life could get better or worse. Experts predicted that the shared struggles and experiences that we face due to the pandemic could really foster solidarity and bring us all closer together, both within our communities and globally. This pandemic could be an opportunity for us to become more committed to supporting and helping one another. That is a definite bonus. Structural and political changes. Some of the things that we've seen happen in the last year and a half, this pandemic has exposed inequalities and injustices in our societies, and many people hope that this visibility might encourage our societies to address them. The pandemic can bring an increased awareness of our vulnerability and mutual dependence. So early in the pandemic, experts also believe that we might see proactive efforts and societal will to bring structural and political changes towards a more just and diversity included society, which I feel like as the pandemic has gone on, we definitely do see that. Even here, we talk more about mental health. The mental health conversations have exploded over the last year and a half due to the pandemic. Renewed social connections. The most common positive consequence of this pandemic is that we see an increased awareness in the importance of our social connections and relationships. Since the pandemic has limited our ability to face with friends and family, it has highlighted just how vulnerable some of our family members and neighbors might be. In this pandemic, we have renewed social connections with friends that we've lost. We've also, many of us, developed relationships with our neighbors that we never had before because we did not have a need to reach out to those that were right around us. But due to this quarantine and being locked in, and especially elderly neighbors, people are reaching out and getting more connected to their communities, which I think is a huge, huge, we have a peer here that says that she calls them Corona bonuses, which I think is a great term. There's a lot of Corona bonuses, and one of them is that we are meeting the people that live around us, meeting our neighbors, getting more connected socially. So when we talk about what might be worse or had been made worse a little bit by this pandemic, definitely that possibility for increased prejudice or racism. We've seen a lot of Asian and API hate come out of this. And really, it's just a chance for us to really examine what's going on with us and where we're thinking. Most of these, when we are shut in or locked in, it tends us to go to an in-group and be more closed into who we think and what we believe. So people do become more entrenched in their in-groups and in their out-group beliefs. However, and with this, political unrest has happened. We have seen experts discuss how greater focus on our in-groups might exacerbate existing political divisions. We have definitely, I've seen over the last year and a half, it seems that political unrest has increased. But I also wanted to mention that it is one of those things that we lead to the next slide, is that these are things that happen all the time. It doesn't take a pandemic. It doesn't take a pandemic for there to be prejudice or racism. It doesn't take a pandemic for there to be political unrest. This is just part of life for us, and which leads me to my next slide, older adults and the effects of COVID. So how has COVID really affected our communities and our older adults? In the beginning, it's really interesting to me because as the coronavirus started to spread, older adults were affected far more disproportionately. There was greater adverse effects from the pandemic, including more severe complications. There was higher mortality, concerns about disruption to daily routines, access to care, the difficulty in adapting to technologies like Zoom, getting telemedicine, concerns that isolation would exacerbate existing mental and physical health conditions. However, the interesting thing to me is that older adults tend to have a low stress reactivity and in general are better at emotional regulation than younger people. So the early data suggests that where older patients were actually more able to accept and work through and move through these disruptions compared to their younger counterparts. So it's the reason is it's a more nuanced picture, and older adults as a group are a little more resilient to anxiety and depression and stress-related mental health disorders that are more characterized of the younger populations, especially during that initial COVID lockdown. However, these findings, that's my page, don't let us really understand that there are positive short-term outcomes among older populations, and that might not necessarily capture the heterogeneity of outcomes for individuals. So as a group, as a large population, older adults tend to handle this a little bit better than younger adults, but that's not saying specifics. So there are definitely groups and specific individuals of older adults that have been highly impacted, that have had definite negative consequences to the coronavirus. But I did want to just bring that up because I do think that older adults have a lot to offer. You have a lot of wisdom. You've been through a ton of stuff. So I think it's great that there is such a resiliency out there, especially with our older adults coming into COVID. And I liked this little artwork, tough times don't last, tough people do, which kind of goes to one of my favorite sayings of this too shall pass. Whatever we're going through, it will end. Eventually this pandemic will end. So when we talk about different personality types and how they might react to life after COVID, to post-pandemic opening up, here you have Carl Jung's different personality types. There's 5 big ones: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So according to this theory, there are these 5 broad traits that make up basic personality. Some people are going to be very high in some of these traits, and some people are going to be very low. Others are going to be somewhere in the middle. It's your unique combination of traits that makes you who you are and how you're able to handle things like a pandemic, things like mental health crises, different challenges. That's just personality and people being unique. In order to understand how returning to normal routines might affect people with different personality types, it can be helpful to look at what researchers have found about how personality impacts coping during the pandemic. So, when we talk about personality and well-being, research has found that personality traits can play a role in the overall mental health and people's ability to cope with stressful or traumatic events. Studies have shown that personalities play a role in how people adjusted and coped with changes brought on by the pandemic. And in one study, researchers found that extroverts experienced greater decreases in their mood, while introverts actually experienced slight increases. So that makes sense. If you're an extrovert and you're into being social and out there, that lockdown and removal of all those social things had a big impact on you. And on the flip side, those of us that are maybe introverted and get a little bit anxious about social interactions or being around a ton of people had a great boost when it came to this quarantine and being shut down and in your homes. So when we talk about how extroverts might cope with the transition back after the pandemic, extroverts tend to thrive in social situations and they gain energy from being around and interacting with others. Social distancing guidelines meant that many extroverts were cut off from other people, and that was a very big challenge for many of them. Research suggests that extroversion is typically linked to better coping skills in general. People with this personality trait often have a higher level of resilience with a little less stress. Aspects of the pandemic that reduced contact with people, such as social distancing and lockdowns, were perhaps most taxing for people who thrive in social situations. Because of this, people who have extroverted personalities may find that the return to pre-pandemic routines is a relief. This is particularly true if the return to normalcy is also accompanied by increased contact with friends, family, coworkers, and other people. A study published in the Journal of American Psychologists found that people that have high extroversion personalities were the least likely to comply with shelter-in-place orders during the pandemic. Introverts, on the other hand, unlike extroverts, introverts tend to feel drained by social interaction. This does not mean that they don't like being around people. It's just that they need time to recharge after spending time in social settings. Because many introverts have an easier time coping with social distancing and working from home, the return to normal patterns of daily life might be more challenging than for those people that thrive on solitude. For some introverts, the year of the pandemic was a time of personal exploration and freedom from typical social pressures of work life. One study found that people actually thrived amidst lockdowns because of reduced commute times, more time with their immediate family, and increased online communications. While introverts are sometimes misunderstood as being shy, aloof, or socially anxious, they do enjoy the company of others as long as they can recharge. As this pandemic wore on, even some of the most introverted personalities found themselves craving social connections at times. This might not mean, though, that when it's opening up that they are ready to chock their calendar full of events. You know, they need to ease back into stuff. Going back into a work life, going back into social settings, this might leave them feeling drained and exhausted. So we might need to have the challenge of making a place for these people to figure out how to get back into normal without completely sacrificing the peace and the slower pace of life that they discovered over the course of the year. Over this last year in the pandemic, we have had people realize that their former lives were often centered around activities that were out of step with their personalities. For others, the pandemic has led to increased self-awareness and the realization that they have no desire to return to their pre-pandemic life. Then there's those of us that are ambiverts. We're a little of both. These are personalities that lie somewhere in the middle of extroversion and introversion. I feel like this is where I am. People with this type of personality have characteristics of both types, and they're sometimes referred to as outgoing introverts. People that are ambivert personalities enjoy being alone, but can ramp up their social behavior in situations that call for it. Like extroverts, ambiverts might find the return to post-COVID life easier to deal with. However, they may have dealt with the quarantine better than most extroverts, and they might likely miss aspects of their pre-pandemic routines. Getting back into the swing of things means that many will have more opportunities for the aspects of their social and work lives that they enjoy, including spending time with other people outside of the home. When we look a little more at how different people might react, the question of how people and society may change in the wake of the pandemic remains to be answered. As society reopens, people of all personality types face many challenges. There are things to consider. A transformed workplace or social settings. Because of social distancing policies, the world of work has dramatically shifted. Many questions people have had about work and social productivity and availability have been answered. There are now quests with those that want to work from home that can't, those who might feel challenged if they are deciding they want to return to the office. And this is not just regarding those that are working. For those that are retired, you might have had volunteer projects that you worked on previously, you might have had social engagements, and it is okay to understand that those things might have shifted or changed during the last year. You might not feel comfortable returning, and that's totally okay. Because the other thing we want to talk about is safety. Personality might also play a role in how you feel about safety precautions that are in place as people begin to return to pre-pandemic activities. Some people are super eager to rejoin their coworkers, rejoin their social settings, rejoin the face-to-face. They might still worry about health risks, even as many people have had the vaccine or are continuing to use sanitation and PPE. Research suggests that extroverts are less likely than introverts to follow certain healthcare precautions. So these patterns might persist going forward. A huge thing that we've been dealing with is loneliness. Even before the pandemic struck, a substantial percentage of adults in the US struggled with feelings of loneliness. As many non-essential workers return to working in an office, figuring out how to reconnect with coworkers or build new social connections can present challenges for many people. Extroverts and ambiverts may find it easy to rebuild social connections. And then we also have general stress. So let's look at some ways to cope. When we talk about ways to cope, we're talking about how we can deal with these things that might come up for us and our personality types, might come up for our friends, might come up for our family. We want to talk about practicing self-care. I understand that self-care is like a buzzword right now and it's all over everywhere, but it is very, very important that we understand what our limits are, what we can handle, what is okay for us. If it is not okay for you, that's okay. Allow yourself the space. Lean on your coping skills, the coping skills you've developed over the last year and a half, or coping skills that you've developed previous to that. You lean on those coping skills as a strategy for how to cope with coming back into society, rejoining other people. Find a balance. What is the balance for you? How is it okay for you? Are you okay going to maybe a restaurant that seats outside? Are you okay going to a park for a social situation, but maybe not an inside or interior event? Find that balance for yourself. Talk to other people about what they're doing, what they're experiencing, how they're handling it, how they're coping. Other people's coping skills might work for you as well. And take it slow. Don't worry about rushing back if you don't feel comfortable. Don't worry about getting back to normal if you don't feel like it's normal yet. That's okay too. For those of us that live with older adults, that work with older adults, that want to be supportive of older adults, there are ways to help. Be aware of the anxiety levels of the loved ones you're surrounding yourself with. It's okay. It's normal to have fears about getting sick, about what's going to happen in society, about what's going on politically. That is okay. Understand what those levels are. Express your fears and your feelings. Talk about this stuff with your loved ones. Talk about it with your providers. Talk about it with your therapist. Express your fears and feelings about it. Think about things that we can control. A lot of times anxiety comes because there's so many things we can't control. We can't control who's wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. We can't control who's vaccinated or not vaccinated, but there are things we can control. We can control whether we wear a mask. We can control whether we practice, cleanliness and sanitization, things like that. It's important to understand what we can control. And also find a way to occupy your time. Maybe it's about getting a new hobby. Maybe it's about taking up painting or something at home to occupy your time so you don't feel like you have to be out there. Like I said before, don't rush back. Take it slow. Don't rush your loved ones back if they're not ready. Make accommodations for those of us that need that, little extra space, little extra help. And I wanted to kind of just mention briefly, this is not specific to older adults. This is across all ages right now. This is a very personal situation for a lot of people. The thoughts about it, the feelings about it, all of that is very personal. And so I really stress to people, try not to take other people's personal stuff personally. I have friends that I have not seen in a year and a half because they have personal reasons for what they're doing. I don't take it personally because it's not about me. It's not about not wanting to see me or be around me. It's about what's okay for them and their family. I can accept that because it's not about me. It's about them. It's okay if people need to take time, if they need to take space. Remember that to stay safe for yourself, whatever safety means to you, it's okay. Maintain your routine. If you have a routine that's going on in the pandemic, if you've started a new routine over the last year, it's okay to keep that routine. It's also okay to gradually change that routine if you feel like, I've been sleeping in and now I need to get up, or I've been, had so much free time to do this and now I'm getting a little back into a schedule. Ease your way back into it. Maintain your routine, but gradually change it if you need it. Don't all of a sudden cold turkey, I'm going to start waking up at 5 a.m. and start, go doing everything. Do what's right for you. Also huge, monitor the information intake. I really wish that everyone would turn off their TVs, turn off their radios, go outside. Don't listen to the news cycles 24 hours a day. Don't scroll through your social media feeds and see all of that. Really take an honest look at how much you need to have from outside influences. Is it really adding to your life? Is it making a difference if you're getting upset and angry about things that you really can't control? Or is it better to turn the TV off and take a walk? Monitor your information intake and make sure that you're getting information from reputable sources, from verified, resources, instead of just what you see in some meme or social media or post or half of a commercial. Be aware. And let's remember, there have been happier times and there will be happier times. As I said before, this too shall pass. Nothing lasts forever. So when we talk about things to watch out for, and this is especially true when we're talking about our older adult population, scams and frauds are out there. There are all kinds of ways for scammers to capitalize on the fear and anxiety and confusion that has been created by COVID-19. And now they are using the vaccine rollout to steal older adults' Medicare numbers and personal information. The fraudsters are always looking for ways to scam people. So here's a few of the scams that I found and ways to avoid them. Scammers will call and say that you can get your vaccine early by providing your Medicare number or other personal information. They might ask for payment up front and or your insurance information in order to be placed on a priority waiting list for a vaccine that you might never receive. Don't pay for it. You cannot pay to get in line to get the vaccine. Survey vaccine scams. Some scammers will impersonate legitimate vaccine providers and use doctored information such as logos and phone numbers to send enticing vaccine surveys that say they are offering gifts, money, and other incentives. The message may claim to be urgent, giving a time frame of expiration if you don't click on their deceptive link to get your personal information. Don't fall for it. A vaccine survey offering you an incentive or stating a sense of urgency is a complete red flag. You should always be able to double check logos and phone numbers and hover over links to see if they are long and suspicious. Don't click on them. There are also vaccine trial scams. There are numerous clinical research trials in the race to develop additional COVID-19 vaccine treatments and cures. Legitimate clinical trials might offer payments to participants under a well-defined legal guidelines. However, career criminals know that the offer of a paid clinical trial is also the offer for financial identity theft. Be very wary of unsolicited calls, emails, or anyone requesting personal information. The Federal Trade Commission issued a warning in October of 2020 with helpful hints to determine whether a trial is legitimate or not. So do your due diligence in your research if you're interested in joining a vaccine clinical trial to make sure that they are coming from reputable sources, that they are not trying to get your personal information. And lastly, vaccine for sale scams. There are websites being set up offering to sell vaccines or vaccine kits. Some imitate legitimate pharmaceutical manufacturers, and in some cases, scammers were asking for payment for vaccines or the kits via credit card and sending payments to specific credit unions. Don't fall for it. You cannot buy a vaccine. So the last little thing that I want to talk about today is resiliency. And I brought this up because it was so, I wanted to say hopeful to me to realize and read at how, as a group, older adults are more resilient. And that makes sense. You've been around, you've seen a lot, you understand, this is life. Yes, it's hard, but it can pass. So this resiliency is what we're talking about. Life does not come with a map. Everyone will experience twists and turns, from everyday challenges to traumatic events with more lasting impact, like the death of a loved one, or a life-altering accident, or a serious illness. Each change affects people differently, bringing a unique flood of thoughts, strong emotions, and uncertainty. Yet people generally adapt well over time to life-changing situations and stressful situations, in part thanks to resilience. So when we talk about building resiliency, build your connections. We're talking about how we've been removed from our friends and family. Resiliency comes from relationships. Prioritize your relationships. Make sure that you're reaching out to those people that you care about and care about you regularly. If you feel like you don't have enough of those people, join a group. Find a group that fits you. Is it an exercise group? Is it a hiking group? Is it a support group? Is it an art group? There's all kinds of groups out there for everything. Join a group and find others who think like you. Foster wellness in your body. Take care of yourself and your health. Practicing mindfulness and being present and in the moment. Avoiding negative outlets. I fully understand and can appreciate that times like these, sometimes people just want to escape. But drinking, alcohol, junk food, those are not healthy ways to escape. So avoid those negative outlets. Instead, find purpose. Find a purpose for your life. Help others. It's scientifically proven, the helper therapy principle, that when you help someone else, you actually get the most help. So go out there and selfishly help other people to help yourself. Be proactive out there in what you're going through and continue to move towards your goals. If you stumble, that's okay. If your goals shift, that's okay too. But just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it's just about doing the next indicated step. And in those, look for opportunities of self-discovery. As you sign up for an art class and you go once, maybe you decide, you know what, I really hate painting, but I've decided I like working with clay. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change your path. Look for those opportunities of self-discovery that let you know, hey, this is what I really like. And keep embracing those healthy thoughts. Keep things in perspective. Understand, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes we don't get to know what that reason is. And sometimes the reason doesn't make sense, but we can keep it in perspective. We can accept that change is the only constant. This too shall pass. Like I've said a few times, change is going to happen. The pandemic will end. Things will return to some kind of a normal, and something else will happen. That's just the way life goes. So we can accept the change. We can maintain that hopeful outlook that we know without the sour, there is no sweet, that we have to have bad days in order to appreciate good days. So we can maintain that hopeful look, and we can learn from our past. We can see that we've had adversity, that we've faced challenges, that we've had loss of relationship or loss of connection, and we survived that and we grew from it. So we can learn that this too shall pass, and we can grow past this pandemic. And finally, the most importantly, if you can't handle it on your own, if you are struggling and these methods seem to be not working, seek help. Find help from a clinician. Find help from a support group. There are people out there that are struggling and feeling and experiencing many things similar to you, and they do want to help. Join us at NAMI, join us at St. Mary's, join us to really learn and understand where are these things, what is affecting us, where is my perceptions or my thoughts leading into this, and how can I learn a better coping skill? How can I be better supporting to myself, to my friends? And with that, I will say thank you for joining us today. We have a ton of information on our website about our educational classes, about our support groups. There are ways to get connected if you would like more information on the things we've shared. My email is on the screen. My email is my first name, jolissa@namilongbeach.org. There's also the general information email address shown and our general phone number. Our phone number is completely confidential. If you call us, you can leave a detailed voice message, and that is only monitored by someone trained to answer the phone, so it is completely confidential. And we do invite you to join our support groups at any time. Support groups can be registered for at any time and logged on. You'll get the link to the group. If you would like to join one of our classes, we do have registration links available, and those classes are set up on a rolling basis. And again, everything that we do offer is at no charge. So if you are interested in any of our classes, support groups, if you would like presentations like this in your office or community, please do feel free to reach out to us. We would love to share. So thank you again, Patty, for having me here today. And thank you, St. Mary's. We love our partnership with you, and I do greatly appreciate it. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jalissa. Thank you. Okay.